Uh, I know you guys are across the states, Canada, UK, wherever. So thank you for joining. This is our first official day of info sessions. So it is exciting, and also it's our first time doing online info sessions. So usually we go to the school um, and do the info session live, or Zane, where went to school at ICL, he would do the info session there. And so now, yeah, it's our first time doing it online. So hopefully you enjoy it and get questions answered. As I said in the email, Zane will be monitoring the chat and answering questions that come up. If they're easy to answer, he'll type it in. Otherwise, he'll interrupt me and answer your questions or have me answer. So, if I'm giving the presentation and a question pops in your mind, don't wait till the end for the Q&A. Just type it in. And
Gotcha.
then just for Zane's defense, if there's a ton of questions, give Zane some time to answer them. And then at the end, of course, we'll have a official time for Q&A as well. But yeah, oops, there's some more people here. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Give me a second. And Zane, why don't you introduce yourself while I'm getting my screen shared here.
Sure. So,
Well,
as Matt said, I'm Zane. Um, I went to university at Imperial College London. I majored in mathematics, and I was an intern for Common Out in 2018, and I also returned as a leader in 2019. And since then, I've still been working with Common Out in various projects as well.
That's right. Thank you, Zane, and thanks for being here to help us. And if anyone has questions, specifically for Zane, please ask them too, because everyone has a different experience. To introduce myself, I'm Matt, and program director, and I've done the program since 2015 when it first started, with just 11 of us interns. And last year, so the summer of 2019, we had over 200 interns, and about 30 or 40 of them were returning interns, such as Zane. So Zane was a leader for our program. As he said, now he's staff too. And so that's a big part of our program, is alumni coming back to help. And actually, in this picture here in my slide, you can see the different shirts. That's from 2018, but you can see the different shirts that are the returning interns. And I always have this slide at the very beginning. I think many of you already signed up for the newsletter. Thank you. We'll be sending out one next week, but that's the best way to stay updated with our program. So especially with COVID, we'll constantly keep you updated via our website on the COVID page, but also our newsletter. So that's the best way to do it. No pressure to sign up, but it is the best way to keep updated, and also with application deadlines. So yeah, without further ado, we'll start our info session on the Global English Camp. Thanks again, everyone. And
in fact, I'm going to interrupt you right there.
Do it.
We already have a few questions.
Oh my.
So I'd like to, rather than kind of holding all the questions to the end,
Yeah,
it'd be nice to have this interactive back and forth. So
Go
our
ahead.
first question, is this an individual or a group program?
Very much a group program. We have a strong community vibe in our program. You will be grouped with 10 to 12 interns. That is, it consists of a small team. So last year, Zane led a team of 10 to 12 around parts of Tokyo. But you'll be also part of a bigger group, like you see here in the picture. And we have two groups. So one group arrives 1 week earlier than the other, and so it staggers the weeks of teaching. And that consists of about 100 to 120 students in that group, or interns. Yep. And we'll get more into that too.
And yes, and our second question, the website says that there will be up to 3 interviews for the program. With that in mind, how competitively are people vetted for this camp?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Zane can speak to it too. It's a competitive program, and I'll just say it right now. I always shy away from this because it scares people. But last year we had 1,200 applicants, and we only accepted 220 or so. And a big part, or 30, 40-ish of those were alumni. So so it's even less, and so that is a low percentage. However, I will say this immediately, that apply early. Our first deadline is November 30th. We accept applications until next year. However, we accept people on a rolling basis. So that means, we will interview the people who apply earlier first, and if we like them after their interviews, we'll accept you guys. So the vast majority of our interns apply before November 30th. So while it is competitive, it's much better. What? Oh, someone writing apply? Is that you, Zane?
That's not me. I'm not sure where this is coming from.
Someone else, if there's another staff here doing that. But whatever they were writing applied before something. That is true. Apply before November 30th, and that help. It's still competitive, but yeah, I don't know who's writing that, but very interesting. There you go. Apply before November 30th. Any other questions that came up right there, Zane? Since I'm not.
Yes, just one quite quickly. What are you looking for in a candidate?
Yeah, that is a very difficult question to answer. So I'll make my answer short, and it's a little vague as well. It's also cliche. I mean, what we're looking for is a diverse group of candidates. We don't want just Japanese studies majors. We don't want just future teachers. Zane and I are teachers outside of English Camp as well, but we don't want just teachers. Even though teaching and mentoring is such an important aspect, we really just want a passion for that. So a strong desire to impact others and mentor students. So make that clear on your application. It's okay if you don't have teaching experience. The majority of our interns do not. We just want that passion. And then that being said, we are looking for a diverse group of candidates in all aspects: background, experiences, majors, schools, because we want to give the students a very diverse experience and the ability to learn from different people from all over the world with different passions. So again, that sounds cliche and vague, but that ultimately is what we're looking for. But passion for mentoring, flexibility, ability to adapt to a new place. You're going to be teaching and living in Japan for 5 weeks, and sometimes we, due to the student sign-up process, we say, hey, we actually need you to not go to Osaka this week. Can you go to Fukuoka further south? And we really appreciate people that say, okay, that's fine. That flexibility does come up. Zane, what was the other one you said that was really good in the last session?
Patience. So being in a different country, being around so many different people with different personalities, having to interact with students who may have a lot of difficulties on the program, being in so many different environments throughout different weeks, it's very important to have a lot of patience and flexibility.
Super important. Patience, flexibility, and passion for mentoring, I would say, and passion for culture exchange, I'd say, are big aspects. So yeah, please make that clear in the application. And again, another cliche, let your own personality shine. Be yourself on it, because we really are looking for a large group of individuals, even though this is very much a community internship.
Yeah. A few more questions popping in, which is great.
Yeah.
Real quick, who might the interviewers be? So your first interview will be with the Common Out staff, and we'll talk a bit more about the distinction between some of the different organizations involved. So that would be someone like myself, someone like Matt, someone who has been on the program as an intern, as a mentor. And then the other interview will be with the Japanese company that we work very closely with.
Exactly. And we'll talk about them too.
Yes. Another question. So will all applications sent in before November 30th be considered in the same way? So is there an advantage to sending an application, say October 31st, as opposed to November 8th?
We do. That's a great question. And we do review applications in the order they are sent in. So I guess there is a slight advantage. However, we don't review the applications until November 30th. So I'm not going through right now and reviewing applications. So I will review all of them. We will, as a team, review all of them after that deadline. And then we start selecting for interviews. So hopefully that makes sense. So I would say don't worry about rushing it right away. Just make sure to get it in before the 30th of November.
And in terms of the program dates, we have the Group A and Group B dates. Even though the dates are to be announced, to be decided, can you just give us a rough idea of what these dates would look like?
Yeah. So last year it was July 16th. I'm stalling to get my exact dates on my year. Might as well give you guys the best. So this upcoming year, the tentative start dates, the probable start dates would be the weekend of July 10th and the weekend of July 17th. So everyone arrives for the weekend orientation and then training week begins. And the respective end dates would be August 20th and August 27th as the last days of class. And that is, if this program happens, of course, it's tentative. But if it does, that's about, I would say, a 90% chance those are the dates. We do have to wait for the school system to send out, the Japanese school system, to give us their summer schedule, because we have to base it around that to get the most students available. Any other questions right now?
No, you go ahead. I'll answer one of the questions in the chat.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Zane, and thanks for the questions. Keep asking them. It's good. It's helpful for everyone. So here's a quick overview slide. Like I said, those are the probable dates, but we will send it out when we decide them early next year after we hear from the Japanese schools. You have 1 week of training and 4 weeks of teaching. We say mentoring the students because you're really facilitating conversation and mentoring rather than teaching English. In 5 days, which you spend 5 days with your group of students. So 1 to 6 each week, but the average is 4 students per each intern. And within this 5-day program, I asked myself the first time I did it, how much of an impact can I have on students in 5 days? As I mentioned, Zane and I are teachers. I taught world history for a whole year, and I was unsure if I impacted my junior high school students after 1 whole year. In Global English Camp, after 1 week, I totally saw on the last day how much I impacted the students. And that is what kept me coming back. That's what had me return, was just 5 days, you have such an impact. You're not going to necessarily improve their vocabulary in English they're not going to become masters of the language, but their confidence in English is a dramatic increase, especially speaking English. Enjoyment, and you also help them find their life mission. So a big part of our program is helping students find their dreams, their goals, how they want to contribute to the world, and that's their final speech, which I'll get to later in the presentation. But that's the overview. 1 week of training, 4 weeks of teaching. It's a 5-week program. Here's the 3 companies that Zane was talking about. So Coming Out Japan, myself, Zane, a couple others. We do the applications, we do the recruiting, we do the onboarding, preparing you to come to Japan, and then we provide support while you're over there. We are the first contact on the not Japanese side. On the Japanese side, we have Nagase Bros, Toshin. They're our program sponsor. They run the classroom. They get all the Japanese students. They're very famous in Japan. If you ever go there and ask someone if you know Toshin, it's a probability they will. Plus, their advertisements on the Tokyo baseball team's left field wall. So you see their name around, and they're really fantastic, and the staff is great. Zane and I are really close with the staff, and you guys, if you participate, will become really close with them as well. Not just the fellow interns, not just the students, but the Japanese staff are fantastic and a big part of it too, of our community. And then Come On Up is our partner entity in Japan. They do all the reimbursements, the housing, transportation, kind of the program admin is actually what that should say as well. They're another program admin. And they are the first contact in Japan too. So we've got these 3 companies working together. Like I said, do you have a question, Zane?
Yes, I have a few questions.
Go
So
ahead.
some questions I am going to answer in the chat. So I am sending that now. And some questions I will ask here. So if this summer's program is cancelled, will people have to reapply next year?
So great question. So if you are accepted into this year's program and it's canceled, you will not have to reapply. Many of the 2020 interns are going through this right now, this process. We will just reconfirm with you guys in the fall. And let's cross our fingers, knock on wood, whatever we need to do, that we can actually have this program. But of course, safety and health first. And let me add on to that actually with the question that came up last time, is you are not locked into the program until you buy your plane ticket. And by buy your plane ticket, I mean purchase through us. We purchase it and you have a deposit. We'll talk about that later. But that locks you in, and we would not have you buy your plane ticket unless it's safe to do so, unless we're going to do the program. So that's the ultimate kind of indicator. And so you do not have to worry about it. You can apply even if you're hesitating, get accepted, and just take your time on the decision, as we also will determine if it's safe to do the program. All right.
Another similar question for people that have applied, been accepted, and then can no longer make the dates. What Matt has just said will then apply for if you choose to apply for the year after that.
Absolutely. Yep. If you are
For
accepted
people,
and you can defer. Sorry.
yeah, for people who are not native speakers of English, that's not a problem as long as you are roughly native level. And so that's something that we can judge through interviews. Similarly, there's no expectation for any Japanese language ability. And this is something that Matt will probably mention later, that actually the majority of the interns that join the program have no Japanese experience.
It's all true.
And then another question. So might it be more difficult for younger students or first years to successfully apply compared to older students who are closer to graduation?
That's a good question. I've got a two-part answer to that. The first part is with any internship, any program, there's kind of a natural favoring towards older students because of life experiences, because you might have more experience that is relevant to our program. However, like I said earlier, we actually do also try to balance the age range of interns we have in the program. So, yes, the majority of our interns last year, I would say, were juniors and seniors in university, probably, right, Zane? But I that's the majority because that's the most applicants we get, I would say. However, we did have first years, we had second years, we had grad students, we had PhD students, we had recent graduates of university. And we do, just like we want different backgrounds and different majors and interests, et cetera, we also want to try to balance age range as well.
Yes, and then another question. So about what time in the process do people usually buy the tickets?
And that will probably change this year as well. But usually, our first acceptance round. I'll just speak to this year rather than the past. Our first acceptance this year will be a little delayed, probably in January. The onboarding process in the past can start once you're accepted. Once you're accepted, you can confirm with us and start the process of getting us your passport and necessary documents. We do a background check. And then you can start the plane ticket purchase process once all that's approved. This year, it'll probably be delayed, and I would say sometime in early spring. But of course, it's all going to be take it with a grain of salt because we're going to have to depends on the status of COVID and going from there. We will keep everyone updated on that process. And again, if we start the plane ticket purchase process in March and you need a few weeks to decide, a month, we are flexible in that regard, especially this year. Is that all good now?
Yep, all good.
All right, great. Thank you. Hopefully those answers helped. I left up this schedule for a while I was talking, since it's a lot going on in case anyone was reading it, but it gives you a good idea. It's on our website of the balance of our program, our textbook. So in training week, we thoroughly go over the textbook. We teach you strategies in the classroom. Zane and other leaders talk about their past experiences. That's the anecdotal stuff really helps. It's very thorough and we make sure everyone's ready. So you do not need to create any curriculum of your own. It's all there for you. We have a backlog of games and icebreakers to play with your students. If some part of the textbook is not working too well, maybe an activity is not working with your students, we trust interns to be prepared after training and lead their students. But then we have staff like myself and Zane, leaders, returning interns, and Japanese staff that are in the classroom to always help if you need it. But this is the schedule. Take a look at it. It's fun. It's a good mix of games, global discussions, presentations by the students, presentations by the interns. And we think it's super fun and it's worked really well. And I'll go into a little bit of it. So these are some pictures from some speaking exercises in the classroom, what it looks like. The Olympics will actually be taken out of the textbook this year because they will be happening. Well, again, tentatively, right? So we will be replacing that content, but we've talked about that in the past. This is a favorite of mine, the entrepreneurship discussion. This is one of the modules that will be replacing the Olympics. And I think these pictures give a good indicator of our atmosphere in the classroom. These students created a domination switch that turns off your annoying siblings. And these other students created a microwave bento box they called Mike. And, these are just a couple examples, but we always encourage students to have fun and, not be so serious all the time. The positive energy is a big part of our program. And for sake of time, I'm going to skip over the testimonials, but you can read them on the website, since I'd rather, spend more time answering questions. Here's another presentation, UN Sustainable Development Goals. Really nice. This is their second presentation, so you really start to see the students gaining more confidence in English. And it's also really inspiring to hear their different opinions on world issues. I mentioned earlier that interns give presentations. We have 2 presentations you guys would give as mentors. One is about your university. We do either a university fair, like that picture of Freddie there sitting down with the students around him, where Zane might put ICL, mathematics, and I might put UCLA, film, and students would choose what school they want to learn about, because quite frankly, a lot of these students really want to study abroad. And if they didn't before, they come to this program and then definitely do. So it's also a fun icebreaker for the students to learn about your current life. And if you graduated, that's fine. You can talk about your school experience. The other presentation is a major field of study presentation, or basically your own life mission presentation. So you get to tell the students about what your dreams and goals are and how you want to contribute to the world. And if you're not sure yet, you just talk about your major and your interests. The students get a lot out of it. And quite frankly, the interns get a lot out of it too. I love going around and watching the different intern presentations, since they're so inspiring too. It's also a way for students that aren't in your group to connect with you. For example, some student might really be interested in mathematics and see that Zane is doing a presentation on math, and he or she can, they can go talk to Zane about math. A student watched my presentation on film, needed help getting into film school, and I helped him and his friend apply for film school and get in, based on that discussion, even though he wasn't my student. So those are really nice, and it's a really great benefit for students. And then the final day is the life mission speech. This is the culminating event of the program. It's a 3-minute speech, at least 3 minutes. For a lot of the students, the first time they've ever done a speech this long in English. And they talk about, their life mission, how they want to contribute. And there's a few things I want to say about this, and I'll let Zane have some comments too. It's really, really a tangible way to see how much your students improved over the week. And it's so inspiring to hear their goals and dreams. But also, we also call this a mentorship because a lot of times the students come to the camp not knowing what they want to do, and they leave the camp after just 5 days having a clear vision, or at least a much clearer vision. And that's really heartwarming and inspiring to see your students stand up there and point you out and say, hey, I want to do this now, and Matt inspired me by talking with me about this. And that is so special. And again, that's why I stuck around in this camp on this 5th day, watching these speeches and seeing my students do this in their transformation over the week. It's really special. Zane, do you have any other comments about the week?
Yes. So I'd say that the key part of this program is the students and the interactions that you have with the students and the connections that you make with the students and just how much you impart with them. And so seeing that growth that Matt mentioned from day 1 all the way to day 5, where they're talking, on the stage in front of everyone for, 3 straight minutes in a language that they were not confident with, it's really heartwarming, very inspiring.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's so fulfilling of an experience. And like Zane said, the students are first. A lot of people say, wow, this is great. It's a free trip to Japan. Well, okay, it's not completely free, first of all, but we also have tons of cultural events, and I'll talk about these later, of exploring Japan together. It's so fun and fantastic with your fellow interns, but the student experience is really the first and foremost thing of this program, and the reason why Zane and I stick around, and the reason why many people come back. And it's just so special. After the life, you know what I should say, which I forgot at the start, is what students were teaching. So these students range from junior high school, and I'll have Zane explain, or I'll just say from about 14 years old uh, to 18, high school, throughout high school, and then some university students. However, we usually have our returnees teach them. Zane had a group of universities last year, for example. But yeah, they're all they're mostly high school students. The vast majority are high school students. And then as far as skill level, English skill level, it is a massive range. And I think, this is a challenging part of the program, but also something that's really special too. There's a base score they have to have on their exams, but there's still the English level can be quite low. And we group students by their level. And we try to balance week by week what interns get in terms of student level. For example, you might have really low level students one week, then medium, then very high level students, that some of which are as fluent as all of us here, which is wild. But that's the fun part of it. You get to be creative and spontaneous with your students. The textbook works for all levels. It's just a matter of what those discussions entail, how deep you get into things, what you focus on. So it's really cool to have both experiences. Yeah. And of course, we prepare you in training to adapt to that. Zane, did you have something to add?
Just 2 questions before we continue. So if you want to finish your point.
No, that's it. I just wanted to talk about the variety of students that we get.
Okay. So 2 questions. One, if you could just talk a bit more about what the interviews and the application process is like.
Yeah, so the application on our website, if many of you have already seen that or even filled it out, thank you if you did. As you can see, we don't require a letter of recommendation or a resume, a little bit different than maybe other internships, because we really want to focus this on you as a person. What are your experiences that contribute to you being a good candidate for this program? What are your passions? Why does that relate to our program? What is your life mission? We ask that, of course, because that's a major part of our program. And again, we want a diverse set of life missions, not just everyone that wants to teach English in Japan. And so, yeah, again, my recommendation, so cliche of always be yourself, but really let that passion for mentoring and helping others shine, as well as the individualism of each of you. As far as the interviews, it'll take us about, usually it's 30 days from the deadline, but it'll probably be 45 this year, since everything's delayed. We will contact you if you're accepted after we ourselves, me, Zane, the team, and our team in Japan go through the applications. If you're selected, we contact you for an interview. And in that interview, we talk about the points on your application. We ask you some teaching scenarios, things that happen in the program. I like to give a little bonus for people that attend info sessions. So one sample question is, let's say you had a group of 4 students. 3 of them are enjoying themselves, participating in discussions, very active in the conversations, but one of them is not so much, maybe keeping to themselves or not, doesn't seem, for whatever reason, that they're willing to participate as much. And how would you respond to that situation? So that's a sample question that we ask as well. That's very specific to the camp. And then we have a second interview, like Zane mentioned earlier, with the Japanese team, and they have their own set of questions. We won't be doing third interviews this year to the situation, but if there is a wait list, when there is a wait list, we may interview a third time too, because inevitably people will drop out. But that's when it comes to it, when we know the status of if this program's happening or not. So those 2 interviews, different. Of course, the Japanese interview is all in English with the Japanese team. And like Zane said earlier, no Japanese requirements for this program at all. We only ask that in the application because we need to prepare our Japanese language teachers with the amount of students coming in for each level. So that's why we get that information. Anything else to add, Zane?
Okay. Another question. So can you request to be in the same team as another intern or to live with that intern?
Great question. And yes, you can. That comes in the onboarding process. It's a classic line, but it's true. We can't guarantee that you will be with that friend. But we do take those requests. And in the past, we've had plenty of friends live together, especially if that makes you more comfortable in this type of situation traveling abroad. But again, it's all, it can't be guaranteed, and it's all dependent on how many teachers we need at each venue, which I haven't talked about yet. There's tons of different venues across Japan that we operate at. Some have only 4 teachers and 16 students, like in Okinawa. Some, like our Tokyo venue in Shinjuku Station, right in the heart of downtown. And just looking at Zane because that's the best spot for food, we think. Of course, all of Japan has wonderful food, but in that venue, that's our headquarters. We have upwards of 100, interns at any one time, 500 students. So there's a big difference. And while I'm on this topic, I've kind of rambled myself into this, but it might come up as a question. You will get assigned your itinerary when you get to Japan. I know that's a little nerve-wracking, but our students don't sign up, or most of the students don't sign up till very last minute for the program. So it's all a prediction game up until we get the students signing up. But we do take preferences. If you want to be in Tokyo the entire time, you want to spend most of your time in Kansai region, Osaka, Kyoto, or maybe you're really flexible and you want to travel all over, which we really appreciate. And so the common experience is 2 to 3 weeks at a home base. So Tokyo, Osaka, Nagoya, Yokohama, and 1 or 2 weeks at a different venue, at a different city, maybe a smaller city.
Okay, a few more questions. So, could you give a bit of advice on the life mission part of the application? It's a bit open-ended.
It's super open-ended, and we apologize for that, and it is kind of on purpose because that's what we do with our students too. I would like you guys to talk about what and again, when I was in university and I studied film and I worked in film, and now I'm very far away from the film industry, so things change, your goals in life change, but where you're at now, how do you see yourself? What's your vision of how you will contribute to the world? Um, and again, this is where we're mostly looking at, do you have a at least somewhat clear vision or an idea of different paths you can take that you can share with your students? And then we're also looking for a variety of these different visions so that our students can get, a lot of a different insight of a lot of different majors, goals, dreams, and life missions.
Okay. Could you talk a bit more about the numbers? So, how many people roughly apply? How many people roughly get through the first interview stage or the second interview stage and finally into acceptance?
Yes, and again, apply early to challenge these numbers, because last year we had over 1,200 applicants, and so about 170 first-year interns got in. So that's like a 15% acceptance rate, which is, I know, quite low, but it's much higher in the first round. And I don't know those exact numbers offhand, but I would say that at least 75% of our interns were hired in the first round. And we got a ton of applications in the second round too. So it's a much higher chance. And then how many pass on to the interviews? I would say of those 1,200 last year, and Zane, you're going to have to get ready for that this year, we interviewed maybe 400 to 600 of them. Yeah, we do a lot of interviews because we think it's really important. We applications, we get so many great applications, and people you guys really shine through these, and I love reading them, quite frankly. Love learning about different people, but when we actually talk, we learn a lot more. And of course, talking is a big part of our program. You're going to be talking with students. We love the enthusiasm and the high energy in these interviews. That's another recommendation. And then with those interviews going on to Toshin, so that whittles down to, more closer to like 33% of that move on to the final in the program, or make it to the program.
Okay. Considering the COVID situation, how many people will be sharing rooms, and how many people will be in the same room?
That is a fantastic question. I wish I knew the exact answer to. I'll talk about the housing experience in a bit of the different options, but right now we're totally unsure. It's rarer to share a room. Mostly, it's not a guarantee that you'll always have your own room. In the past, at least. Again, this could change for this year for COVID. But most of the time, you have your own room. You share the amenities of a share house. I'll get into that in a sec, actually. So we'll just have to keep you guys updated. And of course, if it's not safe, we won't do the program. There's been, talks of a quarantine, right? If there needs to be a week quarantine, we have a facility that supports hundreds of people as a training facility that we use, that can stay there and train there. And that is a potential option. However, if it's not safe to bring all these people into one place, then we won't do it. More questions? Or are we good? You got your work cut out for you, Zane.
More questions. So, could you say a bit more about the focus of the different interviews? So, what's the focus of our side of the interviews, and what's the focus of the Torsion side of the interviews?
I would say the main shared focus is the teaching aspect, the mentoring. So mentoring scenarios, how are you going to impact students? Why do you want to impact students? That comes up in both. Toshin leans more a little bit about your experience and desire to be in Japan, being that they are the Japanese company. And we focus more about your current experience, whether it's in university or at your job, and your experience not in Japan. So I would say that's the separation of the two. And the shared aspect is the teaching questions, which are really important, and mentoring questions, I should say.
And are you contacted if you're not accepted?
Yes, we send out an email at each round, whether you're if you're not accepted, for example, at the end, of course, and we'll also let you know if you're put on the wait list too, which we've just started doing, and we'll have again this year, of course.
Okay, and that's all the questions.
Hey.
That will probably have for about 30 seconds.
Yeah, Zane. Round of applause for Zane. Thank you. And thanks for the questions, guys. Keep them coming.
Yes.
We're probably going to get more in a second here after these couple slides. So these pictures are the graduation ceremony. This is really where you see how much impact you had on students if you didn't already see it in the speeches. Zane, you have your little gifts, right? Students present you with a little speech about how you impacted them. They give you a message card that's supposed to be a surprise. That's really special. Zane and I keep these. I have mine framed back in my family house. Sometimes they give you gifts. A student, gave me this figurine. I mean, it's a tangible way to see how you affected the students, and you get to give a speech to your students as well. And this is where the waterworks start, oftentimes, tears. This is the only time that you're allowed to speak Japanese if you do speak Japanese. Or if you don't, make up a little speech. I don't speak great Japanese at all. And you try a little bit in their language, and the faces they just light up, and it's so fun. I know Zane does that every time too.
Yes, one of the best things is that if you do know some Japanese, you can basically just lie to them and say that you don't know any Japanese. And one thing that does is that it helps encourage them to speak to you in only English if they think that you do not know a single word of Japanese. And then at the end of the week, if you bust out a speech to them in Japanese, they are mind blown completely. And it's always really fun to watch. And if you don't speak any Japanese at all, then them seeing you struggle through the grammar and the pronunciation and the vocabulary, it's nice for them to see someone else struggling the way that they did as well.
Yeah, it's a great tradition we have. It's so fun. And the Japanese staff and other interns that know Japanese can always help, like they have helped me in the past. All right, here's a page where the questions might start going. What's included? So it is not a free trip to Japan, but it is highly subsidized. This question comes up, so I'll just answer it. It's unpaid, so you don't need a work visa. You can go on the tourist visa. So that's 90 days. So that'll be relevant to this next thing, which is the airfare. So we cover up to 1,600 USD, 1,200 pounds, essentially, for a round trip ticket, which 99% of the time will cover your round trip ticket from your home or university to Japan and back. We put you in contact with our travel agency. You work out what flight you want. You get to choose. As long as you're there for the program, you can come to Japan 2 weeks ahead of time and travel, or stay 2 weeks after and travel. Highly recommended. And you just pay a deposit to the travel agency. So you pay them $500. We cover the rest. And then you get that reimbursed all but $100, which is the onboarding fee, covering the vetting, the background checks, pre-training, everything in our onboarding process. And so that is the only cost with the program. And so you get that $400 within 45 days of the completion of the program. Anything that would be deducted is or reason that you wouldn't get it fully back is if you destroy your house or leave the program. That's why we have the deposit, so people don't just fly out to Japan and not show up. And yeah, and to add on to that, people always ask, can we travel to other countries before coming to Japan? Yes, but if you do that through our travel agency, for example, you do a stopover in Hong Kong or Taiwan on the way, you only are allowed to get 1,000 USD reimbursement, so 750 pounds ish. And that's because our program sponsors want to encourage travel in Japan. You can come to Japan 2 weeks earlier and buy your own flight to Taiwan and back, which is super cheap, for example. But they're really encouraging everyone to come to Japan early and explore if you have the time and means, because 5 weeks goes by super fast, and that's only 5 weekends of free time. I mean, you have the evenings to explore, of course, after class. Should have said this early, from 9:30 to 5:30. That's when you have to be in class. After that, you can do whatever you want. But it goes by quickly. So that's my recommendation. Housing is provided throughout the program. It varies from venue to venue. So I mentioned like Okinawa, Hokkaido, Tokyo, Osaka, all these different venues we have. If you're in one of our headquarters like Tokyo and Osaka, you are very much likely to have the shared house. So that's where you would have your own room and share the amenities, the bathroom, the living room, etc., with other interns and potentially Japanese young professionals. So maybe university grads from Japan that want to meet international students. So that's really fun. It's a fun social atmosphere in those houses. We've had dorm rooms in the past, a little rare, but we've had those where that's where you would share the room. Homestays are, you stay with a Japanese student's family for a week. And if you really want to homestay, which a lot of people do, this is my recommendation for the info session, is if you're accepted, please say that you are flexible to go to smaller cities, not just Tokyo, Osaka, because there are almost no homestays in Tokyo, Osaka. They're all in the rural parts. And they're really amazing. Zane did one, right? But you did it with the staff?
Yes. So one of the weeks I was up north in the east in Hokkaido, and I had a homestay instead of with a Japanese student's family, it was with one of the Japanese staff's family, and it was amazing. Having to have just a normal Japanese living situation. The mum cooked me bento lunches every day. We went out to sushi at the end of the week, and just chilling at home, playing Smash Brothers with the two sons. It was a really nice, fun experience.
Yeah, really, really special. And so, I mean, all experiences are great. The share house, you get to hang with your fellow interns. The homestay, you get to meet a Japanese family and live. And of course, they even do your laundry. We have these great stories of like, oh my God, my laundry was all done. And then, they took me to their favorite spots and the secret spots. It's really special. We also have apartments, hotels at some venues. It's really dependent on the venue and the school you're at as what's available. So again, you wouldn't find that out until you're in Japan, which is again why we like flexibility in our interns. You get a food subsidy each working day. 2,300 yen was last year's subsidy. It's about $23, 17 pounds, 18 pounds. Yeah.
On that topic, we had a question about for people who arrived to Japan early or late, would food and housing allowances still be provided?
So if the food allowance and housing allowance only happened for the program date. So for example, those dates I said, like July 10th weekend, that's the orientation weekend, which I totally did not mention. I'm going to mention that in a second. You get allowances from there all the way to the last weekend of class, and housing as well. So outside of that, you're on your own. That being said, you can stay in houses with our share house company. Come on up. They offer like a really cheap rate. It's like, 25, 30 US dollars a night. For example, like if you want to stay 2 weeks after, but you just want to stay at your share house, you can do that. But otherwise, you are on your own. We're happy to provide recommendations. If you do end up coming out early, you can email us and we can help you, with your plans. Was there another question or?
Yes, just clarify again how much the food subsidies is.
Oh, 2,300 yen a day.
Okay, 2,300 yen. I made a mistake on that. My bad.
No worries. What did you put?
I put 2,500.
And it might be next year. So these guys got a little insight. We're trying to get the extra 200 yen. And that $23 or $25 is very helpful in Japan. My misconception was food was going to be super expensive, and it can be, but best bowl of ramen for $5 when I landed, and you can really preserve that. And we don't ask for receipts; we just give you the money, and you use it how you want. But Zane and I, our strategy is to splurge a little bit and treat ourselves. But it's up to you if you want to save it and eat cheaply. Konbini food, convenience stores, is actually really good and super cheap.
Another last question. What housing recommendations do people have for coming early?
Personally, I guess Zane, we can each give our personal recommendations. Um, I could say, recommend our company, as we should, our partner company, Come On Up. And I think it's great. And it's a great way to meet people while you're there in a share house. I also really like capsule hotels. Some people do not. They're very unique in Japan. If you haven't stayed at one before, you are literally in a capsule. But they're super cheap, and they're the ones that I've stayed at are super clean, and the staff is fantastic. And you meet fellow travelers. Those are my recommendations. Of course, personal preference. Zane, do you have anything to add?
I would just stick with a normal hotel.
Okay, it's good to have both sides. And you could always reach out to ask us. A lot of interns stayed at the hostel we stayed at for our retreat. So I'll jump into that since I didn't mention. The first weekend of the program, we spend a couple days getting over jet lag, hopefully, meeting everyone at this hostel in Asakusa, which is like the cultural hub of Tokyo. And we do these fun welcome activities, have a big welcome dinner party. We give you guys some money to go enjoy yourselves and explore Tokyo. We have a disaster training to train for earthquakes and such. And then you get assigned your housing, and then training week starts. So that first weekend is a hostel, and then you go to your housing starting in the training week. Transportation, and then Zane's questions. You get transportation to and from class from your house. That is all covered for you. And if it's needed to go to another venue, for example, a lot of people will be taking a Shinkansen, a bullet train from Tokyo to Osaka, because they're doing 1 week in Tokyo and one in Osaka, or maybe you're flying to Okinawa. That's all covered and provided, and the travel day is Sundays. And Zane, yes.
Yes. So is the camp guaranteed to occur next year in one way or another? And if not, will the official decision be reported before applications are due?
It will not be before applications are due, the official decision. We just can't do it. It will be before you need to start buying plane tickets, though, which won't come till spring. So onboarding. And you can always email us to stay in touch. If anything's changed, we update our website. The other question, wait, what was the other question?
So will official decision be reported? Excuse me, sorry. Yeah. Is the camp guaranteed to occur next year in one form or another?
Right. Okay. So that's a good question. It is not guaranteed, unfortunately. We were all really bummed this past summer, but hey, we safety and health first always. There may be a chance that we hold a online camp next summer. That is in development, which obviously is a totally different experience. But again, that you can tell that our main thing is the students from us doing that, and it'll be just as impactful. We did the test this summer. That was great. Thanks for the question. And sorry, I don't have any final answers now.
Yeah. How likely is it that location preferences are met? So if you wanted to have, say, your last week in a particular place, for instance.
The answer I'm going to give is don't think that you're going to get it. However, we do read everyone's placements. If you want to stay in Tokyo the whole time, which a lot of people do, it's a higher percentage chance that you're going to get that because we have so many students there. It's our biggest venue by far. Or maybe you'll go to Chiba for a week, or Zane, where did you go to? Saitama or?
Saitama and Kushiro.
Yeah, so all in that same region, just not in the central of Tokyo. But if you say, I want to go to Sendai really badly, it's a very specific request, and we only have so many students or interns that can go there because it's a smaller venue. So it's a less chance you'll get that. The main preference we ask is Tokyo and Kansai, so Kyoto and Osaka. and those more often than not are met, because that's kind of divided. And then if you want to travel a lot, since we have less people requesting to travel as much as possible, that's more likely to be met. What I always say though is that no matter the experience, I think it's wonderful. If you're in Tokyo for 5 weeks and you're like, oh, dang, I wish I could have traveled. Well, you really get to know Tokyo. You cannot get to know Tokyo in 1 week. Well, you can't get to know it in 5 weeks. There's so much there. Or if you travel a bunch and you're like, oh man, I'm only in Tokyo for 1 week, take advantage of that week, explore Tokyo, and then be open-minded, because the other smaller cities in Japan are incredible as well. And there's something special there. And when you're at a smaller venue, quite frankly, you're more likely to get taken out by staff to their special spots because it's such a small group and tight knit. So those are just some pros and cons.
Yes. Do people get school credit for this?
You can apply. We do it individually. A lot of schools require 8 weeks. That's been our trouble in the where we've had trouble in the past. But we have given people school credit before. So you just work with us individually. You email us.
Okay. One person has asked, is it recommended or allowed for interns to befriend students? So hanging out and such. I'll put my input for this
please.
question.
Yeah, you did do that.
Yeah. For students that are still in high school or even middle school or junior high school, it is not recommended. Contact with these students has to go through a system requesting permission from the parents first before they are allowed to contact you outside of the program. However, with university students or any of the Japanese staff, you're allowed to befriend them and add them on Facebook or Line and message them and so on. So if they are still in high school or junior high school, then no, more or less. If they're older, then that's fine.
I have nothing to add. Perfect answer.
Thank you. So is there an effect on the chances of being accepted based off of last summer's applications?
Is there a chance of being accepted based on last summer? You mean if you applied last summer? I think maybe that means.
Sorry, I said that wrong.
Oh.
So because some of last summer's applications are carrying on to this summer, does that affect your chances for this year's application?
Yes, and I should have mentioned that earlier. Yes, quite frankly, it does, unfortunately. But this goes back to the early deadline thing. Even more of a better chance is if you apply early because of this situation. Because we had 200 interns last year, right? And well, 50 of them were returning. So 150 interns that could potentially come back this year. We've sent out a form to these 2020 interns, and just over half, I think, have responded. So it's not like every 2020 intern can come back for the 2021 program. In fact, a lot cannot. But we do give them a seat first. And so, yes, there will be less positions. However, there's also going to be less applications this year, in my opinion. That's what I am predicting. So the percentages might be similar-ish. Overall, I would say, yes, it's harder. But again, it's just another reason to apply early. Thanks for that. That was a really great question, and I'm glad that was brought up because I totally forgot to mention that when we talked about applying earlier.
Yeah. If you've been to Japan before, is that a pro or a con?
Neither, but good question. We want both. Like I said earlier, it's not I mean, if you talk about your experience in Japan, how it affected you, yeah, of course, that's great to hear. But we don't want to put people at a disadvantage that have not been to Japan, because we think that's an important experience as well.
Will the students be in a co-ed environment? And could you also explain what co-ed is to some people who may not know?
Yeah, so boys and girls, it's did you? No, you didn't. That was Jordan that was talking about the all-boys school last week at our webinar.
Jordan mentioned that, yeah.
Right. So there are a couple schools that are not co-ed. And this is actually a great thing to bring up, is that most of the venues are Toshin run. So our partner, they run the actual venue, and Toshin staff are there. However, some private schools and subsidiaries of Toshin have their own venues. And one of those private schools is an all-male school and all-boys school in Yokohama called Seiko Gakuen, for example. And so that's most of the time it's co-ed, but there is that rare chance that you do have it at an one of the all gender school. And sometimes, which is fun, high school students that go to not co-ed school attend English camp in a co-ed environment, which is unique for them as well. Thanks for the question.
Okay, I think that's it for now.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the 99 plus up there on the chat, and thank you, Zane. You've done a great job, and we should all be grateful. Thank you. Where was I? Oh, the other subsidies that you get. So we talked about housing, food, airplane, transportation, airfare. The optional field trips. So like I said, 9:30 to 5:30, we have a meeting in the morning, 9:30. The class ends at 5, but students linger around, finish their review, and maybe you'll talk to your coaches if you have your leaders like Zane, if we want to have an after class meeting to talk about anything. 5:30, you're gone. You can do anything you want, like I said, but we have language classes that are happening maybe at 6:30, and you have an hour to get some food, and then you go attend a language class. That's provided. We have cultural events going on. Maybe you're going to one I always bring up, the Team Lab Museum Borderless in Tokyo. That's like our most popular one, where we provide those tickets for you. Go have this incredible experience. In the smaller venues, leaders might pick where you go, not our staff. So one leader took, on my recommendation, if I may say so, took his team on a boat trip to a small island off of Okinawa to do some snorkeling. There's such a wide variety of different things, all cultural based. And we provide, you get to choose any two to go to. The others, you have to pay a small fee or whatever they're costing. And then we also have unofficial stuff. I always mention that I pop into a classroom and say, first 10 that want to go to my favorite restaurant, I'm not going to tell you what it is, but if you want to go with me, I have a reservation. And we do things like this constantly, the staff. It's a big part of the bonding, but those aren't covered. So those are like unofficial, non-program sponsored. All right, did I cover that? Yeah, I think I did. All right, and then of course, health and accident insurance. Really quick, I have to tell the story, but I'm going to keep it very short. One of our interns, a friend of Zane and I's, had a spontaneous collapsed lung in Japan. Not due to anything in particular. He's just a tall, skinny guy, and he had a collapsed lung. He did not call an ambulance. He didn't tell anyone. He took the train to the hospital in pain. Please don't do that. The ambulance will be covered by your insurance. He got to the hospital. We brought him treats. He was there for a week. He was super positive about it and said it was an interesting experience. But the main part of the story is that everything was covered in this hospital visit. So our health insurance is important for that. And of course, he's fine now. And he returned actually the next year as a leader. So that's our insurance. And then otherwise for like minor doctor's appointments, you submit claims. So like you'll go and pay $40 up front for a doctor visit if you're feeling ill, and then you submit claims and get reimbursed by our insurance company. So that's how that works. And then of course this year we are looking into new plans and talking with our company to see what's going to work best considering the situation. So that'll be updated next year as well. And of course you get the cultural experience of a lifetime. All right. Any more questions?
Two quick things.
Yeah.
One is that I think the strangest part of the story with the collapsed lung is that he took the train to the hospital. It's not like he's American and he was worried about the fees of the ambulance. He's British. I think he just didn't want to disturb anybody.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of just amazing.
What a story it is.
What a story it is. And two, if we choose to take language classes, are we committed to them? So are we obligated to attend every class until the end of the program, or are we allowed to miss some?
Yep. You can miss some. Just please let your teacher know. We have like a sign-up system, and so those teachers just want to know who's showing up, because we've had it in the past where like 10 people said they were going to show up, and then they all went out to eat a meal instead and left the teachers. So that's the only thing. They're all optional.
So you're only committed once you signed up for that particular lesson.
Particular lesson, yes. Thank you. Are we caught up now?
Yes, it's mostly just people memeing at our friend here.
Incredible. These are some cultural experiences and activities pictures. I'll just flip through these. I didn't realize we're already at 7. I guess because we had so many questions, which is great. Yeah, so anything from a tea ceremony, calligraphy. The picture on the bottom left and both on the bottom are from Hakone, which I did not mention. It's our overnight trip at the end of training week on Friday. We don't do training; we just meet at the training facility. We get our tickets. We take a train called the Romance Car with reserved seating, and we go out to Hakone, which is near Mount Fuji. We have these cabins on a beautiful lake, and we just enjoy nature and celebrate finishing training week and getting ready for the first week of English camp. It's just a fun little weekend retreat that we offer to, and it's super fun, and a lot of people really love that experience. And for a lot of people, it's like your last time you might see fellow interns because everyone goes off to their different cities as well. So it's a special part of the program. We also have language exchanges in addition to the classes. So we hold one every year at University of Tokyo, so you can meet fellow university students and practice Japanese and help them with their English. And that's nice because, like Zane said earlier, with the contact info, how you have to go through Toshin to get, if you want to stay in touch with your high school students. University students, of course, you make your connections, they're adults, and this is where a lot of friendships form too. Here's some more pictures.
While we're doing some pictures,
Yeah.
Could you talk a bit about kind of uniform or attire for the mentors?
Yeah. So the best way I like to say it is think about what your teacher would wear. I know that's really simplified, but that's how we do it. You know, so it is hot in Japan, but we wear pants, and Zane and I suffer through it, the humidity. A collared shirt for guys. Just think about what you're. What?
Sorry, it took me a second because pants means something different in the UK.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, continue.
And that's another fun part of the program, which we haven't really talked about, is meeting people from around the world, fellow interns, and staying in touch with them and learning about each other's cultures. I think it's super cool. And I love going out to London to visit the alumni like Zane and go out to eat with them, and they show me the city. And we've had so many interns travel to other interns to stay with them, and they always update us, which is really nice to see everyone staying in touch. And that's a really fun thing in the classroom too: British English versus American English versus Canadian English, all that. A fun point of contention that sometimes gets heated discussions, but they're all good fun. And in the end, hopefully that answered the uniform question. And what I always do, just to say it, is I bring a pair of shorts and nice clothes or relaxed clothes to work so I can change into them in the sweltering humidity of Japan. Anyways, the last thing I always like to say, like Zane said at the start, this thing is really about these students and their special experience. We love seeing pictures like this of students laughing, having a great time, having an unforgettable experience. That means the most to us, is to see those messages saying that we'll never forget you. We'll never forget these 5 days. It truly is impactful and truly is the reason why Zane and I have stuck around. And here's some classroom pictures over the years. So there's Okinawa. I was talking about like the smaller venues, how much smaller it can be, how different. And then the teams over the years, how we've grown as well, is really special. And then we can play the Find Zane game in the 2019 teams. You can see the different shirts, though. So those are the returning people with the blue, and the first year intern, with the teal, and then the red is staff or third year interns. So we have people returning every year, and such as Zane, who will be with us next summer, of course. Right, Zane? See, if I'm recording, I can just get you to agree. Yeah, I'm just joking.
I was totally paying attention and not watching the chat.
Well, that's your job. That's my fault. Thank you so much again. And so here's the picture of the returning interns from last year. Again, huge part of us. You know, this is all for the students, and it's all for the community we create together and exploring Japan and mentoring these students together. Very special. Interns, students, staff. That was the phases. So just a reminder, November 30th, and go to apply. Again, don't rush into it. Like I said earlier, just take your time, be happy with what you submit, and just do so before the 30th if you're interested. Or even if you're hesitating, because it's a much better chance if you do it by then and you can decide later. Any pending questions?
Yes, a few. So on the topic of attire, so questions on jeans and shorts for women. So like moderately appropriate shorts and not like booty shorts.
Yeah, fine. And jeans, fine. And the thing, and to go off that too, is you can always ask staff. That's our general thing, is to dress like a teacher. So shorts and jeans, sure, that's fine. I wear jeans when I teach. But you can always ask Japanese staff at different venues just to clarify, because some venues, like I said, are run by different. So most of the venues are run by Toshin, but some are private high schools that might have their own. Whether it's more strict or more lenient, just ask the staff, and you'll meet the staff and go over everything before starting at a venue like that.
And just repeat the deadline dates again.
November 30th. Second deadline is end of December. But again, I understand people get midterms coming up and things get busy, but really it does benefit you to apply early. Is that all the questions so far?
So for people who might practice an instrument, how would they kind of work around with that with all the noise?
That's an interesting question. I don't think we've ever gotten an info session, but we've had musicians every year. One intern last year brought their violin into class and played for the students, which is great. That's super fun. Why not? And I don't remember their exact living situation, but you just talk with your share housemates. I know it's been fine in the past. In fact, the share house, a lot of times the fellow interns want to hear it. So just let us know if you are. That's a good thing to do in the onboarding process, so that we can place you in good housing so that you can practice.
Okay. Just another open question to everyone, I suppose. If you typed a question into the chat and I've missed it, feel free to say it again now. I think Alejandro had a question about your major because he's also into film.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I studied film at UCLA. I don't know if that's where you attend, but that, for me, it was about 9 years ago. It was a long time. But I'm always happy to talk about film. Shoot me an email.
On the topic of food, so dietary requirements. So, for instance, people might be vegan or vegetarian. I eat halal. We've had some people on the program who also eat kosher. I would say that being in Tokyo is probably the easiest with regards to that, in terms of finding specific like halal or kosher in particular. So if you're interested in that, I've worked quite a bit on finding halal spots in Tokyo. In general, for vegan, vegetarian, and allergies in particular, I imagine you can more or less find a few key phrases that you can help to communicate with most places around the country. And some places it might be you might have to hop around a few different restaurants before you find somewhere that does vegetarian food, for instance.
Yeah, great points. And Zane, thank you again for producing that map of halal food in Tokyo. And we did provide last year at least the like pre-written statements in Japanese for vegetarians to help you out as well. And also, again, I'll mention it, staff, great resource to help you with that. They're always so willing and so great, Japanese staff.
If you have questions that you feel you don't want to ask in front of everybody, you can message Matt. So Matt at comonoutjapan.com.
Thank you.
Yes. And could we have a few more examples of interview questions? A bit of a bonus.
A bit of a bold ask. Sure. Sure. Let's see. Another one I really like to ask, you guys remember, just a reminder, maybe you joined late to get that bonus question of, if 3 students are active in discussion, but one is not, what do you do? How do you resolve that? I love to ask the opposite question, which happens more often maybe, is that 3 students are not so active and more on the quiet side, but 1 student is dominating the verbal space, taking over the conversation, which may even be a more difficult scenario. Um, yeah, we also um, ask specific questions about flexibility. So, for example, how would you feel in a situation where you were suddenly, told you had to not be in Tokyo and go to this other venue? Um, those type of adaptability questions. Um, Please keep in mind we're looking for super flexible people, just due to the nature of the program and students signing up so last minute. We have so many changes every year. Um, and I don't know if I mentioned this actually, but we actually don't get the itinerary until you arrive in Japan. Did I mention that? It's good to
I
mention.
don't think
So,
it's
or
okay.
yeah, okay, yeah. So you give us your preferences, but we just can't tell you until you get to Japan. And oh, I like that comment, Charmaine. I'm open to traveling everywhere and anywhere you need me. Now I'm on the chat. I can see it too. What have I missed on the chat?
You've missed a lot.
Oh, Christian wants to eat sushi after this. Me too. Oh man, I'm right there with you. Uh, Eddie, we'll be here for maybe 4 or 5 more minutes. So any other questions? Then we got to let Zane go to bed.
It's only like 2:15 in the morning.
Yeah, not bad. Oh, Among Us memes, of course. I mean, people have talked about bringing Among Us to the English camp and how it would work in the classroom. Oh, dipping noodles, suke man, yeah. Oh, Myro, you were doing the notes. No problem. At least we found out. I didn't realize that either, quite frankly. I guess my option is to, because I teach English on this account, is to let students write on it. So it's totally fine. I thought it was funny. Any other? Oh, Max, you had a question. I see you raised your hand, unless you did that on accident.
Yes. You hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, hello, Matt and Zane. With regards to the kind of weekly schedule, I think you maybe have briefly touched on it. It's like a rotating weekly schedule with a classroom. So you kind of switch classrooms between weeks. Is that correct? Could you go into detail on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Zane,
Yeah.
you want to take
So
it?
yeah, okay. So as we saw, so this is a copy of the textbook that we used last year, and in the front of the textbook is a weekly schedule. So it kind of outlines what you do each day, and so what you kind of each of the sessions that we have. So we might start off with a speaking exercise, and then go into presentations about your majors, presentations about your universities, and then do some discussion-based activities where the students work on posters, for instance, and then presenting them at the end of the day. And so this is the basic structure that you will have for each day, for each week. And there's a lot of flexibility in being allowed to kind of do as the classroom wants as a whole, as well as what's most appropriate for your students. But this basic structure is the same thing that you will do 4 weeks in a row. So you get really used to hearing
Yeah.
about the Olympics or the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The number of times I hope number 4 is study, because I think that's the one I've had the most.
Yeah.
Education
Yeah.
for all.
The one benefit is you get really familiar with the curriculum and really good at it, and you can kind of anticipate some problems that come up that just happened in past weeks.
Okay. All right. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Appreciate the question. Charmaine, you have a question as well? So you raised your hand.
Yes. Not that I have like exposed like huge tattoos, but is there a concern when it comes to tattoos like having exposed? Does that mean we have to like wear long sleeves in the midsummer?
And it's too bad we don't have Jordan here, who talked about this last week, because he has tattoos. For our program, of course, it's totally fine. You can check with staff if, like I said, different staff at different venues that might want you to cover it, for example. Just check with staff or check with us when you're there. As far as walking around Japan, I mean, you might have already researched about sort of the taboo of it, and it's the general sentiment. Although, and I'm just speaking off friends' experience, talking that I've talked to about. Jordan, for example, who was on our webinar, you can check that one out on our website too. He actually talks about it for I think 5 minutes or so. The biggest problem that he ever ran into was not getting into onsen. the hot springs, because that is like the biggest restriction, and you have to find specific tattoo friendly onsen, which is maybe and I'm a big onsen fan, so I'm biased, but like that would maybe be the biggest issue, yeah, in Japan. But otherwise, just check with staff for venue.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And Zachary has a question.
Yes. So I am very tall, and I'm like a foot above the average in Japan. Is that going to come into play? Because my dad went there at one point, and he was like, "Yeah, no, it sucks. The buses are all too small. Everything is too small." How does that work for accommodations?
You
Yes, so
Go ahead, Zane.
actually, this is actually been passed, a bill has been passed recently, that says that I think if you're above about 6'5", they just turn you away at the airport.
I thought you
Yeah,
actually
Sorry,
had some-
no,
okay,
sorry,
I'm-
it's
I'm
2:15 in the morning.
just
I'm
wondering.
in that funny mood now. Sorry,
Oh,
go
yeah,
on,
no, I
Matt.
feel that.
Uh,
No, I was just. Oh,
I can add. I mean, I'm not super tall. I'm 6'1", but we've had interns that have been 6'7", 6'6", and one of my good buddies who participated is that tall. And I'd say the biggest issue was the subways. He was used to it because he lives in London, and so he already had that trouble to begin with. I would say that your dad is correct. The public transportation is the toughest aspect. The other tough aspect would be at like maybe traditional events where you need to cross your knees and sit, which I have trouble with, just not being flexible. And so I'm thinking of my tall friends that had trouble there. Otherwise, yeah, I don't see any issue except for that bill passed that Zane mentioned. Yeah. So yeah.
Yes. Where will the recording be uploaded to?
Oh yeah, so we'll upload the recording tomorrow. It'll be www.comeonoutjapan.com/webinars. We're just gonna put it in our webinar page. Thank you, Zane. Dates. Okay, so the dates, Mia, was not confirmed, but Group A and Group B. So remember to keep in mind there's two different groups that tentatively. Just this is what I would tell everyone if you want to like start planning. July 10th start date for A, July 17th start day for B for orientation, and ending August 20th, last day of class for A, and August 27th, last day of class for B. And just on that note, in case people are wondering, some schools, I know like Berkeley here in California starts quite early. You get precedence. I mean, you basically, if your school conflicts with one of the groups, you get to automatically be in the other group. Just in case people are worried about that. Yeah. Yes, Ashley. You can defer. We have had people defer in the past. You will just have to keep in touch with us and reapply as a formality, and then contact us. Especially this year, we haven't had this happen too much in the past, the deferring, but this year obviously is much different. All right, one more minute for any questions, and then we're going to call it. So I'll watch the chat first. Shannon.
You said there were 10 to 12 interns per group. Will you be with that same group for the whole 5 weeks, or will it change each week?
Shame on me for not explaining that. Thank you for asking. You will potentially be with them the whole week. It depends on the venue's needs. So I think Zane traveled with his whole group. Did you the whole time, or did some split
Yes.
off?
So my team of about 12 or so people, we mostly stuck together through most of the weeks. So from week 1 to week 2, there was a slight shift because I didn't have everyone from my team in the same classroom as me, but most of the people were still there. And then when we moved to another location, I had about half of my team come with me, and the other half stayed in Tokyo. And then after that, we kind of regrouped again in another location near Tokyo. So the teams you'll mostly stick through with the program, but that doesn't mean they are the only people that you will work with.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And to add, Zane's answer was perfect, but just to add, you'll never be alone, of course. You'll always have other interns with you. The smallest venue is 4. And if your leader goes elsewhere, like Zane leaves you, there'll be another returning intern or staff with you as well.
Yeah, sounds perfect.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Christopher, you just asked if your school starts August 20th. That's a great question that I should add on to my past answer. We do a case-by-case basis for schools that cannot work with our schedule. We've had this in the past. We have had a few people leave a couple days early, in which case in the last week we paired them up with another mentor, and then they said goodbye a couple days early. We of course want everyone to be there for the whole program, but we do it by case. In other words, it won't hurt your application, Chris. Any other questions? Last call. All right. Well, thank you so much. You guys really appreciate the enthusiastic response. Oh, common to be paired with.
Last night.
Oh, good, great question, Megan, actually. Okay. So first week and last week are common to be paired with a mentor. The reason we do it first week is not only because we have less students sign up for the first week, but also it's a nice way to ease into the process. Thank you for asking that. So.
Yes, and part of the reason why you get paired is because Japanese summers, so the students are only off for only about 5 or 6 weeks, and some schools will start a bit early, some schools will start a bit late. So that first week and that last week that have the fewest number of students.
Yes, exactly. Great question, great answer, and now I'm going to call it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you all. Really appreciate you guys coming to this. Again, this is our first day. We did 2 sessions today with Zane and I. And the first time we've done it online. And so we really appreciate it. And I'm going to end it by saying, first of all, look forward to seeing your applications. Email me with any questions. Fingers crossed we see you all in Japan next summer. But I want a special thanks to Zane working the chat. And thank you guys for asking those questions and him going by and answering them and saying them aloud as well. So, thank you guys. Thanks for all the kind words and sticking around on this Friday night. I hope you all have. I see some arigato gozaimasu in the chat too. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and stay in touch. Good luck on the application. Looking forward to seeing them. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Zane,
thank
you
you,
can finally
guys.
go to bed.
Yeah, thank you. And as tradition, Zane and I will wave until everyone signs off the Zoom.
There's always a few.
There's always a few. There we are.
Okay, great.